We're standing here today at the wreckage of Christopher Columbus' fourth ship, the Santa Loser. Now, you've never heard of it, and that's because on the day of that fateful voyage, this ship took a wrong turn at Bermuda and landed here in Canada. Now, of course, they didn't find any gold, so they quietly returned to Spain, and they were paid huge sums of money to never speak of the voyage again. Now, Christopher Columbus, he was so embarrassed about what happened, he never spoke of this ship. And so that's why it just fell into obscurity and you've never heard of it. But the reason we're here today is because many of you see yourself like this, shipwrecked. You may have made decisions that turned out badly. Bad things may have happened to you, and you ended up feeling burned out, beached, going nowhere, or hopeless. But here's good news. The Bible is full of characters who were thought of to be shipwrecked. And I want to talk to you about two. The first one is Moses. Now, Moses had a very confused upbringing. He was abandoned at birth. He was brought up in two different families. One was Hebrew, one was pagan. So it must have been very confusing. And then he ended up killing someone. So he became a murderer, a fugitive, a refugee, and then a shepherd on the backside of the desert. And most people would consider him by that point a loser, shipwrecked. But God hadn't forgotten about him. And when Moses had his encounter with God, he was changed forever and became a national hero. You see, God doesn't give up on people. If you're breathing, you have potential. Now, the second example is Paul the Apostle. Now, he had a better upbringing, and he was very religious and passionate and full of zeal, but he was headed in the wrong direction. He was killing and imprisoning Christians. Now, to the early church, they thought he was shipwrecked. In fact, they thought he was dangerous and needed to be eliminated with a bolt of lightning. But God saw his potential, and after he's had an encounter with God, his life was changed forever. His problem came, though, when he was applying to be a missionary candidate in the early church. His resume wasn't the best for a missionary. But God convinced the early church leaders that he did have potential, and then he was released into his ministry and he turned the world upside down. So what's the lesson? Where we see a shipwreck, God sees potential. God can take any situation and turn it around. God never gives up on you, so you shouldn't either. To live a transformed life, you must never lose sight of your potential. Now I want to hear from you. What shipwrecks in your life has God turned around into something great? Just leave your comment down below. Now, if you have friends who have been discouraged and see themselves like this, send this video to them. And if you're new here, then just complete the form right there so you can subscribe to my weekly free email newsletter. I'll talk to you again next week.